3 minutes. That was what my cousin's life had been reduced to. Not her laugh, not her loud-ass opinions, not the way she once told me my bangs were a cry for help with edges. Not all the birthdays, holidays, phone calls, family gossip, or emergency, come get me before I commit a felony texts. 3 minutes, 2:57, 2:56. Tasha sat tied to a chair on every screen in the Meridian's ballroom, duct tape over her mouth, terror shining wet in her eyes. A bomb vest hugged her chest like some obscene corset. Wires crossed over red fabric. A small digital timer blinked against her ribs. My stomach fell through the marble floor. Santoro stood near the service corridor with his gun loose in his hand and satisfaction carved into his face. "Choose, Queen." Greg moved. Not much. Just one shift of his shoulders, one breath, one slight turn of his wrist around the knife in his hand. But everyone felt it. The room tightened around him, like the world itself knew better than to get in his way. Santoro lifted his left hand. A black remote rested against his palm, his thumb pressed down on a silver button. "Dead man switch," he said pleasantly. "Your monster comes one step closer. My thumb lifts, and your cousin becomes a very emotional memory." Greg stopped. The effort it took him was visible only because I knew him now. His face stayed cold. His body stayed controlled, but his eyes, God. His eyes were murder screaming behind glass. "Don't," I said. Greg did not look at me. "Greg." His jaw flexed once. The entire ballroom watched the dawn of the Anderson Syndicate obey me. Slowly, his knife lowered half an inch. Santoro smiled wider. "How touching." "Shut up," I snapped. His gaze slid to me, amused. "Careful." "No, you be careful." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Inside, I was shaking so hard I thought my bones might turn to dust. "You interrupted my wedding, threatened my cousin, ruined expensive flowers, and forced me to spend my first almost married moment listening to your villain monologue. I am running low on patience." Somewhere behind me, Marco made a sound that might have been a cough. Or fear. Probably both. The timer kept blinking. 2:31. 2:30. Tasha's eyes darted around the room she was in. She jerked against the restraints, breathing hard through her nose. "Think, Amelia." I forced myself to look past her face. At the wall behind her, dark green paint, one crooked blue painting, a cracked white tile near the baseboard, cheap gold curtains with a water stain down the left side. My heart kicked. I knew that ugly painting. Tasha had shown it to me on video 2 days ago, when Greg had moved her into one of his secure temporary locations, which was Mafia language for surprise. Your apartment is no longer yours because men with guns have opinions. She had called that painting a sad ocean having a nervous breakdown. West 34th, Anderson Safe House, back room. I touched my earring, praying the mic still worked after the chaos. "Marco," I whispered, barely moving my lips. "West 34th Safe House. Back room. Blue painting. Cracked tile." Santoro's eyes narrowed. I lifted my chin and looked directly at him. "What exactly do you want, Carlo, besides attention and a better personality?" His amusement returned, but thinner this time. "Passage." "Out of the Meridian?" "Out of Anderson territory." Greg's voice cut through the room, quiet and lethal. "No." Santoro's thumb lifted the smallest fraction. Tasha's timer stuttered. 2:12 became 2:11, then 2:10. Greg went still again. I could feel the rage coming off him. It had weight, heat, a living thing. But he did not move, because I had told him not to, because Tasha came first. I swallowed the burn in my throat. "You get passage from the building. That's it." "Amelia," Greg said softly. I looked at him. For 1 second, the ballroom vanished. The guns, the blood, the shattered glass. Vincent Moretti bleeding on the floor near the floral arch. The council members crouched like expensive cowards behind overturned chairs. Just Greg. My monster. My almost husband. If you kill him now, she dies, I said. His stare held mine. Something passed between us then. Not softness. Not surrender. Trust. It terrified him more than the guns. Then he looked at Marco. Open the north service exit. Marco's face hardened, but he obeyed. A steel shutter groaned somewhere beyond the ballroom. Santoro backed away with 2 of his men, keeping the remote high enough for everyone to see. Wise choice. Temporary choice, I said. He smiled. You are entertaining. And you smell like untreated childhood issues. His smile died. Good. The screens flickered. For one breathless second, I thought the feed was gone. Then it split. On one side, Tasha struggled in that dark little room. On the other, Luca's body camera shook as he and 3 Anderson men stormed a hallway, guns raised, movements fast and brutal. My lungs locked. 30 seconds, Marco said into his comm. The timer on Tasha's chest read 41. 40. 39. Luca, I whispered, hurry. Santoro was almost at the service exit. Greg's body leaned forward by a fraction. Don't, I said again. This time it came out broken. He heard it anyway. He stayed. On the screen, Luca kicked in a door. Tasha jerked violently in the chair, eyes wide, trying to scream through the tape. A man lunged behind the door with a gun. Luca shot him twice before he finished raising it. 31. 30. A bomb technician in black dropped to his knees in front of Tasha. His hands moved over the vest. Tasha was crying now, but she was still fighting, still trying to help. She stomped her foot hard against the floor. Once, twice, 3 times. The technician looked down. Pressure trigger under the chair, he barked. My nails dug into my palm. Of course. Of course Santoro would add another layer, because apparently basic evil was not dramatic enough for him. 22. 21. Santoro reached the open service exit. Greg turned his head just enough to look at him. No words, no threat. Just a promise. Santoro understood it. For the first time, something like caution crossed his face. Then smoke exploded in the corridor, thick and gray, swallowing him and his remaining men. Greg! Matteo shouted. Gunfire cracked through the service hall. Greg still did not chase. He watched the screen. So did I. 16. 15. The bomb technician clipped one wire. Tasha squeezed her eyes shut. The timer kept going. 10. 9. Wrong one, someone hissed. My heart stopped. 8. 7. Luca grabbed Tasha's shoulder. Hold still. Tasha made a sound through the tape that I knew somehow translated to, Are you fucking kidding me? 6. 5. The technician shoved a metal clamp beneath the chair, securing the pressure plate. 4. 3. He cut a blue wire hidden under a bundle of red. 2. The timer froze. 1. Then went black. For a second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Tasha sagged forward. Alive. Alive. The sound that came out of me was not pretty. It was half sob, half laugh, fully embarrassing, and I did not give a single damn. Greg caught me before my knees hit the floor. His arm wrapped around my waist, hard and warm and unshaking. His heart pounded against my cheek like violence trapped in a cage. She's alive, I said, because my brain needed the words to be real. She's alive, he repeated. Marco was already speaking into his comm. Secure her. Medical team now. Sweep the safe house. Luca, status. The screen shifted as Luca ripped the duct tape from Tasha's mouth. She coughed, gasped, then looked straight into the body cam with mascara streaked down her cheeks and murder in her eyes. If anybody ever puts me in another safe house, she rasped, I'm haunting them while alive. A broken laugh burst out of me. Rosa, somewhere behind the guards, started crying loudly enough to compete with the alarms. Greg's hand tightened at my waist, but his eyes were not on Tasha anymore. They were on the empty service corridor where Santoro had disappeared. The north exit had been opened for exactly 90 seconds. 90 seconds was apparently enough for a cockroach with money, smoke bombs, and too many backup plans. "He's gone," Mateo said, coming back from the corridor with blood on his sleeve and fury on his face. "Vehicle switch in the alley. We got 2 of his men, not him." Greg said nothing. That was worse. Vincent Moretti groaned near the altar. I looked over. The former Anderson advisor was on his knees now, one hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder. His silver hair had fallen out of place. For the first time since I met him, he looked less like an elegant snake and more like an old man who had gambled wrong. Santoro had left him behind. That almost made me smile. Almost. Greg released me slowly, as if every inch of space between us offended him. Then he walked toward Vincent. The room parted. Not because anyone was told to move, because survival instinct was a beautiful thing. Vincent lifted his head. "Gregory." Greg hit him once. Not a slap. Not a dramatic punch meant for show. A clean, vicious strike that dropped Vincent sideways onto the marble. "Your mouth opens again," Greg said, "and it answers questions." Vincent coughed blood onto the floor. "You let him go." "I saved her cousin." "You chose sentiment." "No." Greg's gaze cut briefly to me. "She chose family." I listened. Something moved through the remaining council members at that. Discomfort, fear, maybe realization. Good. Let them realize. Let them remember that the Dawn they feared had just obeyed a woman in red and still somehow looked more dangerous than all of them combined. Marco approached. "Boss, Tasha's being moved. Luca says she's shaken but stable." My breath caught again. "I want to see her." "You will," Greg said immediately. No argument, no cage, just certainty. Then he looked down at Vincent. "Take him to the penthouse." Vincent laughed, low and wet. "You think this ends with Carlo?" Greg's face went colder, the kind of cold that made the air hurt. Vincent smiled through the blood on his teeth. "You should have killed him when you had the chance. By dawn, your own council may crown someone else." The ballroom fell silent. Greg crouched in front of him. When he spoke, his voice was calm enough to be terrifying. "Santoro attacked my wedding. He touched my family. He put a bomb on Amelia's blood." His hand closed around Vincent's throat. "There will be no negotiations now." His eyes lifted to mine. Dark, possessive, merciless. No mercy. Then every light in the meridian went out.
Darkness did not save men from me. It only made them die confused. The second the meridian went black, I had Amelia against my chest and my gun in my hand. The ballroom broke into sharp breaths, shifting feet, the metallic click of weapons leaving holsters. My men knew better than to panic. The council did not. "Down," I ordered. Amelia dropped with me behind the ruined floral arch, red silk whispering over marble. Good girl. For once she did exactly what I told her. Then she ruined it by whispering, "I officially hate mood lighting." The sound that tore through me was not a laugh. It was too dark for that. I caught her jaw and forced her face towards mine, though I could barely see her. "Are you hit?" "No." "Sure." "Yes, Greg." Her voice shook. I hated that. I hated Santoro for putting it there. I hated Vincent for helping. I hated myself most of all because Carlo Santoro had walked out of my territory breathing. And the only reason I had allowed it was because Amelia had looked at me with fear in her eyes and asked me not to trade her cousin's life for my vengeance. Mercy tasted like rust. Emergency lights snapped on, bathing the ballroom in red. My men stood in formation. Santoro's bodies littered the floor. Vincent Moretti lay bleeding near the altar, 2 guns aimed at his skull. The council members were still alive, unfortunately. Marco came through my earpiece. The power cut came from the internal emergency panel. We're back on generator. North corridor clear. Santoro gone. I already knew. I felt his absence like an insult. Amelia's gaze flew to the screens. Tasha was no longer strapped to the bomb. Luca carried her through the safe house hallway, wrapped in his jacket, her face buried against his shoulder. Alive. Amelia sagged. I caught her before anyone else saw her knees weaken. I need to see her, she said. You will. Now. I looked down at her. Red dress, brown skin, split lip, gun still in her hand. A woman built from fear and fury and impossible nerve. My almost wife. My weakness, according to men too stupid to understand power. My convoy leaves in 3 minutes, I said. You're in it. She swallowed and nodded. Behind us, Vincent coughed. You let him go. I turned. He smiled through blood. Your father would have cut down the girl and the cousin both before he let Santoro escape. My gun was in his mouth before his next breath. The room went silent. Vincent stared up at me, eyes wet with pain and old arrogance. My father is dead, I said. Speak of Amelia again, and you join him before you finish the sentence. His smile trembled. I pulled the gun free and looked at Marco. Take him. To the basement. To my home. Marco's expression hardened. He understood. The penthouse had places beneath it no architect had included in polite blueprints. Vincent was going to tell me everything, or he was going to die practicing. By the time we reached the penthouse, Manhattan had turned cold and silver beneath the early morning sky. My building was locked down from the roof to the garage. Snipers on surrounding towers, guards in every elevator shaft. No one entered without being stripped down to skin, history, and intent. Tasha arrived 10 minutes after us. Amelia crossed the foyer before Luca had fully stepped out of the elevator. She hit her cousin like grief with legs, arms wrapping around Tasha so tightly, Luca had to release her fast or lose fingers. Tasha clung back. For once she had no joke ready. Rosa sobbed into a dish towel. Elena stood behind her, spine straight, eyes shining with the kind of controlled rage I respected. Even Matteo looked away. Tasha finally lifted her head. I smell like duct tape, fear, and Luca's cologne. Luca frowned. My cologne is expensive. It smells like expensive trauma. Amelia laughed, then started crying harder. I watched them from the edge of the foyer, hands flexing at my sides. This was why I had let him walk. This, not mercy, calculation. Amelia's family was mine now. Her grief was mine. Her blood, mine. If I had killed Santoro in that ballroom, Tasha would have died on a screen while Amelia watched. I could survive hatred. I could not survive that look in her eyes. Marco approached quietly. Vincent stable enough. Good. Amelia heard me anyway. Of course she did. She looked over Tasha's shoulder. Greg, stay with your cousin. That sounded like husband language for, I'm about to do something illegal downstairs. It is, Tasha sniffed. Can he at least do it loudly? I support revenge as a healing tool. Amelia pulled back, touched her cousin's face, then looked at me. She knew what was in me. She could see it crawling under my skin. Don't disappear into it, she said softly. I gave her the only promise I could. I'll come back. The room beneath the penthouse had no windows. Concrete walls. Steel drain in the floor. One chair bolted beneath a hanging light. Vincent sat in it with his wounded shoulder bandaged, wrists bound, ankles locked. He had advised my father for 20 years, taught me how to read silence, how to recognize betrayal before it smiled, how to make men fear the Anderson name without raising my voice. Then he had forgotten the first rule of monsters. We bite the hand that tries to leash us. I stood in front of him. He looked older under the light, less silver fox, more rotting saint. You used Bianca, I said. His mouth twitched. Bianca used herself. Jealous women are rarely difficult. You gave Santoro the inner elevator code. I preserved the family. I hit him. His head snapped sideways. Blood slid from his lip. You sold the family. I served it before you knew what the word meant. His voice sharpened. I served your father when this city still remembered what discipline looked like. He would never have allowed a woman to stand in front of the council and make him pause. My father died alone. Vincent's face tightened. Good. He died feared, he said. He died empty. Something flashed in his eyes then. Anger, grief, maybe both. You think she fills you? He asked. That mouthy little civilian in red. She has made you hesitate. She made you open a door for Santoro. Every man in that ballroom saw it. I leaned close. Every man in that ballroom saw me choose the life of my wife's blood over your pride. She is not your wife yet. My hand closed around his throat. The chair creaked beneath the force. She is more my wife than you were ever my family. His breath rasped. Behind me, the door opened. I did not turn. Amelia's perfume reached me first. Warm, sweet, edged with smoke from the ballroom. She stepped into the room wearing one of my black shirts over her ruined red dress. Her curls loose now. Lipstick faded but still stubborn on her mouth. I hated her there. I wanted her there. That was the sickness of loving Amelia Johns. She made contradictions feel like orders. You said the council may crown someone else, she said to Vincent. I looked at Marco behind her. He had the sense to look guilty. Amelia ignored both of us. Vincent smiled at her. Listening at doors already. You learn quickly. No, I've always been nosy. It's one of my gifts. Amelia, I warned. She stepped beside me anyway. Was it just you? Vincent's eyes moved between us. He liked games. All traitors did. They mistook withholding for power. No, he said finally. Not just me. The basement seemed to lower around us. Names, I said. He laughed, then winced. You have some, not all. The cathedral accounts, Amelia said. Vincent's expression shifted. Barely. But enough. Amelia saw it too. I watched her face sharpen. Fear was still there, buried under exhaustion. But so was something colder. Something new. You used St. Bridget, she said. Langston House, cathedral restoration, all those fake community payments. That wasn't just bribery. It was a vote-buying machine. Vincent looked at her as if seeing a blade where he had expected silk. There are councilmen who believe the Anderson syndicate requires correction, he said. Correction, she repeated. That's a fancy word for betrayal. It is a necessary word for survival. I crouched in front of him. You chose Santoro. I chose a future without you ruled by your cock and her cunt. Amelia went still. I broke 2 of his fingers before his scream finished forming. Then I gripped his hair and forced his head back. Careful, I said. That future is getting shorter. Vincent panted, sweat shining on his forehead. Kill me then. It won't stop what comes. What comes? He smiled again. I wanted to carve it from his face. The council will not tolerate weakness forever. Amelia's voice was quiet. Then they should stop showing so much of it. For one strange second, Vincent had no answer. I stood and turned to Marco. Lock him down. No one sees him. No one touches him without me. Amelia followed me upstairs in silence. That worried me more than her arguing. In my bedroom, she stood near the windows, looking over the city, shoulders tight inside my shirt. The dress beneath was stained at the hem. Not her blood, not this time. I told you to let him go, she said. Yes. Tasha almost died anyway. But she didn't. Her laugh broke. That's supposed to make me feel better? No. I crossed the room and stood behind her, not touching yet. If I put my hands on her, I did not know if I would hold her or crush the city beneath us. Mercy felt like weakness, I admitted. She turned. Her eyes searched mine. I gave her the truth because she had earned worse from me and stayed. I wanted to kill him. I still want to. I will. My voice dropped. But I would open that door again. I would let him walk again. If you asked me. If it saved her. Her mouth trembled. You listened to me in front of them. Yes. Why? Because you were right. She stared like I had spoken another language. Then she came to me. Not gently. Her hands fisted in my shirt and dragged me down until her mouth crashed against mine. I tasted salt, lipstick, and rage. I lifted her onto the edge of the bed, shoved the ruined silk up her thighs, and stopped only when she caught my wrist. Don't treat me like I'm breakable, she said. Something savage opened in my chest. I know exactly what you are. I kissed her again and tore the thin lace from her hips. She gasped into my mouth as I pushed 2 fingers into her cunt, wet and hot and alive around me. My control cracked in clean, dangerous lines. She unbuckled me with shaking hands, freed my dick, and pulled me closer. Greg. Not a plea, a command. I drove into her in one hard thrust. Her head fell back, throat exposed, legs locking around my waist. I fucked her like a man trying to prove the world had not taken her from him. Deep, rough, possessive. My hand at her jaw, my mouth at her ear, her nails cutting into my shoulders like little punishments I deserved. You are not guilt, I growled. You are not leverage. She clenched around me. Then what am I? My wife. Her breath shattered. I thrust harder, chasing the sound, chasing the heat of her body, the fierce grip of her cunt around my dick. She came with my name bitten between her teeth, and I followed, burying myself deep, forehead pressed to hers, as the last of my restraint burned out. Afterwards, I held her. No one saw that part. No one ever would. A knock came 20 minutes later. Marco's voice through the door. Boss, Vincent is asking to speak. Amelia stirred against my chest. Of course he is. Evil men have terrible timing. I kissed her shoulder and reached for my gun. We went down together. Vincent looked half dead in the chair, but his smile was alive. I thought you should know, he rasped, eyes gleaming under the light. Santoro does not need to kill you, Gregory. I stepped closer. Vincent looked past me to Amelia. He only needs your own counsel to crown someone else. His smile widened. And by sunrise, they'll have the votes.
By sunrise, they'll have the votes. Vincent said it like he had just laid a king on a chessboard. The bastard looked half dead under the basement light, blood drying at the corner of his mouth. 2 fingers bent wrong, but arrogance still sat on him like a tailored suit. Men like Vincent didn't need functioning hands to be dangerous. They only needed secrets. Greg did not move. That was how I knew something inside him had gone very still. Whose votes? He asked. Vincent smiled. Greg stepped closer. I touched his arm, not to stop him, to remind him I was standing there. His gaze flicked to me, dark and sharp. The same hand that had been rough between my thighs less than an hour ago was now curled around a gun, like it was an extension of his bones. I could still feel him in my body, the soreness, the heat, the way he had called me his wife, like the word was law. But the law had a problem. Apparently the council did too. Whose votes? I asked Vincent. His eyes slid to me. Still playing queen? No, I said. Learning the board. That annoyed him. Good. At this point, irritation was my cheapest weapon, and I'd always been financially responsible with free things. Vincent leaned back in the chair, sweating through his expensive shirt. You think because you found a few accounts and repeated some names in front of frightened old men, you understand this world? I understand enough to know you're bleeding in a basement while Santoro is somewhere free and moisturized. Marco coughed behind me. Greg's mouth did not move, but I felt the amusement in him like a blade turning away from my throat. Vincent's stare hardened. You are a distraction. No, I said softly. Bianca was a distraction. I was the thing you underestimated. For the first time, his expression faltered. Tiny, brief, beautiful. Greg saw it too. He crouched until he was level with Vincent. You used Bianca's jealousy to test the house. Vincent's silence answered. You gave Santoro the elevator override, Greg continued. You fed him routes. You let him know Amelia's apartment, Tasha's name, and my public schedule. And when he had enough pressure points, you moved the council through the cathedral. Vincent's jaw flexed. Greg smiled. It was not pretty. You're going to give me names. Vincent spat blood on the concrete floor. Or, Greg tilted his head, or I start with your hands and work my way toward your memories. My stomach twisted. Not because I thought Vincent didn't deserve it. He absolutely deserved something involving pain, therapy bills, and possibly a priest who had lost patience. But I had seen enough blood tonight to know violence could open a man. It could also make him shut forever. Wait, I said. Greg's eyes cut to me. Not mercy, I added quickly, because the word looked like it offended his ancestors. Strategy. Vincent laughed under his breath. She thinks she can advise you now. No, Greg said, standing. She can. The basement seemed to inhale. Even Marco looked at him. I tried not to react, which was difficult because my heart had just done a small, stupid twirl in the middle of a torture room. Greg looked at Marco. Keep him alive. No visitors, no calls. No priest unless he needs someone to hear him scream. Understood, Marco said. Vincent's smile thinned. You are running out of time. Greg turned toward the door. Then we won't waste any more on you. I followed him out. The elevator ride up from the basement was silent, heavy with the kind of pressure that made normal people talk about weather or taxes just to survive it. I was not normal anymore. Maybe I never had been. The doors opened into the penthouse, and warmth hit me first. Not temperature. Life. Rosa was in the kitchen making enough food to feed a traumatized army. Elena stood near the staff hallway, speaking low and fast into her phone. Guards moved like shadows near every entrance. Somewhere in the living room, Tasha sat wrapped in a blanket with an ice pack against her cheek, and Luca hovering nearby like a guilty statue. She pointed at him when she saw me. Tell your Mafia babysitter I do not need to be watched while I drink tea. Luca frowned. You tried to put whiskey in it. I am recovering from a bomb vest. Let me season my leaves. I crossed to her and sat beside her carefully. How are you? Alive, pissed off, and seriously considering suing everybody with an Italian last name. Greg stood behind the couch. Anderson is not Italian. Tasha looked up at him. You are included because you have the vibe. His eyebrow lifted. She sipped her tea like she had not almost died less than 2 hours ago. Her hands shook around the cup. I saw it. So did Greg. His expression changed by a fraction, and for some reason that almost broke me. I took Tasha's hand. I'm sorry. Her eyes snapped to mine. Do not start that shit. Tasha. No. She squeezed my fingers hard. You didn't strap a bomb to me. You didn't kidnap me. You didn't make that man wear tragic cologne and threaten my edges. Luca muttered, again with the cologne. Tasha ignored him. This is on Santoro, and whoever helped him. Her gaze slid toward Greg, not accusing, demanding. I loved her for that. Greg nodded once. They'll answer. Good, she said. But while you're making people answer, I want a gun. No, Greg and I said at the same time. Tasha blinked at me. Excuse me? I mean, I amended, eventually. Maybe, with lessons. And a background vibe check. Greg's gaze dropped to me. No. That single syllable had a lot of audacity in it. I stood. Tasha made a tiny, interested noise and settled deeper into the blanket like someone had just delivered fresh popcorn. We need to talk, I told Greg. We are talking. No, you are dictating in a deep voice and hoping my panties make decisions for me. Luca looked at the ceiling like he was praying for extraction. Greg's eyes darkened. Careful? I was careful. Careful got my cousin in a chair with a bomb on her chest. The room went quiet. Even Rosa stopped banging pots. I breathed in through my nose, forcing my voice steady. I am done being protected without understanding what the hell is happening around me. Greg's jaw tightened. There it was. That instinct. Lock the doors, post the guards, put me behind steel, and call it love. I stepped closer before he could say the words. I need to know the weapons, the codes, the council politics, the money roads, the alliances, the old grudges. Which men are loyal because they believe in you, and which ones are loyal because they're scared of you. I need to know what symbols mean, what names matter, and how to tell when a handshake is really a knife. His eyes stayed on mine. You don't want this world, he said. No, I don't want to be blind in it. I lifted my chin. If I'm going to be Mafia wife material, I need more than lipstick and trauma. Tasha raised her cup. Amen. Greg did not smile, but his gaze moved over me slowly. My curls loose, his black shirt hanging over my red dress. My lipstick faded to a dark stain. Bare legs marked by bruises, dried blood near my ankle, chin still high because spite was apparently load-bearing. You learn, he said, voice low. You listen. You do not improvise with guns. I improvise verbally. It's my brand. Amelia. Fine. Limited improvising. His silence stretched. Then he looked at Luca. Tomorrow, range. Tasha's hand shot up. Me too. No, Greg said. Tasha lowered her hand. I was in a bomb vest. I feel like that earns me 1 self-defense class and emotional compensation. Luca said quietly, I'll train her. Greg looked at him. Luca did not look away. Interesting. Very interesting. Tasha noticed too because even traumatized, my cousin remained nosy with professional stamina. Greg finally said, Basic defense. No live rounds until I approve it. Tasha smiled into her tea. See? Healing. 2 hours later, I sat in Greg's office with 3 monitors glowing in front of me, a stack of files to my left, and a notebook I had stolen from his desk because apparently my villain era required stationery. Greg stood behind my chair, one hand on the back of it, close enough that I could feel his heat, but not touching me. Marco occupied the wall near the door. Elena had brought coffee strong enough to resurrect bad decisions. Start with the council, Greg said. So he did. Names, territories, bloodlines, old treaties, who hated who pretended not to. Which men had sons too stupid to inherit anything sharper than a spoon? Which families had married into influence? Which charities washed money clean enough to sit beside senators and smile? Then came the accounts. Langston House, St. Bridget Community Trust, Cathedral Restoration, LLC. I wrote until my fingers cramped. Patterns began to crawl out of the numbers. Dates around public events. Donations before council votes. Withdrawals near attacks. Transfers hidden beneath restoration invoices. Youth programs, medical grants. All those pretty words covering ugly things. And Bianca. Poor, jealous, vicious Bianca. She wasn't the architect, I said, staring at the screen. She was a door. Greg leaned down, his breath brushing my ear. Explain. She had access, resentment, and an ego. Vincent didn't need her to know the whole plan. He only needed her angry enough to leak pieces and stupid enough to feel chosen while doing it. Marco grunted. Sounds like Bianca. I glanced back. Has anyone checked on where she is? She's blacklisted, Greg said, but I'll have her found. I nodded and looked back at the ledgers. One mark kept appearing beside certain transfers. A small black cross. Not typed, stamped. Always near the lower right corner, half hidden against the edge of scanned documents. Greg. He followed my finger to the screen. The air changed. What is it? I asked. His hand closed over the chair. My father saw that mark twice in his lifetime. Marco stepped away from the wall. No. Greg's face hardened. Santoro's father used it. Old world marker. Not for payment. For what? I asked. Greg's gaze met mine. Allegiance. My skin prickled. I pulled up every document with the black cross, dragging them into a new folder. There were more than I expected. Too many. The pattern was not just money moving. It was loyalty being rebuilt. Dead loyalty. Old loyalty. The kind men killed to revive. My eyes scanned the final line of the newest transfer. Scheduled release. Tonight. I clicked it open. The destination field filled the monitor. Pier 41, Hudson River Freight Yard. 11:45 p.m. Attached note. Cathedral delivery. Council protection confirmed. I stopped breathing. Greg's hand landed on my shoulder. Marco muttered a curse. On the screen, a fresh transaction status blinked from pending to active. I looked up at Greg. Santoro has a payment going out tonight, I said. At the docks.
The payment blinked from pending to active. Pier 41, Hudson River Freight Yard, 11:45 p.m., 48 minutes. I stared at the screen, and the city narrowed to a dock, a timestamp, and the old black cross stamped beside Santoro's money. Marco was already moving. I'll pull the strike team. Matteo on weapons, I said. Luca on the west perimeter. I want eyes on the river, the yard, and every truck within 6 blocks. Amelia turned in my chair. My shirt hung off one shoulder over the red dress she still refused to abandon. Her curls were wild, her lipstick worn down to a dark stain, her eyes sharp despite the exhaustion bruising the edges. I'm coming. No. She stood slowly. That was never a good sign. Greg. No. You do realize repeating it in a deeper voice doesn't magically make it strategy. It's an active hit. And I'm actively involved. You're not going to the docks. Her chin lifted. You just spent 2 hours teaching me roots, politics, symbols, and which old men's smile like constipation means betrayal. Now there's a live transfer tied to the symbol, and suddenly I'm decorative again. You are not decorative. Then stop polishing a cage and calling it protection. My jaw clenched. Behind her, Marco found something fascinating on the floor. Smart man. I stepped closer. There will be bullets at Pier 41. There were bullets at my wedding. And I failed to keep them away from you. Her expression shifted, anger thinning just enough for grief to show underneath. I hated that I had put it there. I hated that Santoro had used her blood to teach her this world. I hated that the safest place for her no longer existed, because men like Vincent and Carlo had made sure of it. But hate did not change command. You don't go into an active kill box without training, I said. Fine. Her voice sharpened. Then give me a position where my brain is useful and my body isn't in your way. Tasha, wrapped in a blanket near the office doors, lifted her hand. As the recently bomb-vested community representative, I support this compromise. I looked at her. She lowered the hand. Emotionally, from a safe distance, with tea. Amelia didn't look away from me. Penthouse security room. I coordinate feeds, maps, comms. I watch for blind spots. You said I learn. Let me learn where it matters. Every instinct in me wanted to lock her behind steel, but instinct had failed me before. Amelia had found Tasha by looking at a painting on a screen, while every armed man in that ballroom calculated blood. She had found Santoro's active payment by reading a pattern my own people had missed. She was not asking to be protected. She was asking to be trusted. The word tasted worse than mercy. Security room, I said. You don't leave it. You don't redirect men without Marco or me confirming unless someone is about to die. And if someone is about to die, then they obey you. Her breath caught. Marco looked up. I kept my eyes on Amelia. Every feed routes to you. Every man hears you. If you speak, they listen. For once she had no smart answer ready. Then Tasha ruined the silence. Great. Mafia wife internship. Love that for us. Amelia grabbed the notebook from the desk and pointed at me with it. Do not get shot. Bossy. You like it? I did. Too much. I caught the back of her neck and kissed her hard enough to remind both of us what we were walking back into. She fisted my jacket for 1 second, then released me before I could change my mind. Bring me something useful, she said. I'll bring you Santoro's throat if I find it. That counts. The Hudson freight yard was wet, black, and ugly under a sickle moon. Pier 41 smelled of river rot, diesel, rust, and men who thought darkness made them invisible. Stacked containers formed narrow corridors between cranes and loading equipment. Sodium lights flickered across puddles. Somewhere beyond the yard, Manhattan glittered like it had no idea how much blood paid its rent. My convoy killed its lights 2 blocks out. We entered on foot. Marco moved on my right. Matteo led 6 men through the south fence. Luca took the west line near the water with 4 more. Rifles suppressed, knives ready, no shouting unless we wanted bodies running. Amelia's voice came through my earpiece, low and steady. Greg, I have 8 heat signatures near Container Row C, 2 on the crane platform, 1 truck idling behind the customs shed. I had seen captains shake more on their first raid. Copy, Marco said. A beat. Then Tasha's voice whispered faintly in the background. Tell them the truck is suspicious as hell. Amelia covered the mic badly. Tasha, this is not group commentary. It has no plates, Amelia. Amelia came back. The traumatized civilian makes a fair point. Truck behind customs shed has no plates. I almost smiled. Almost. Matteo, I said. Clear the truck. On it. We moved through row B. The first Santoro guard died without seeing my face. Marco caught him from behind, blade across the throat, lowered him gently like a lover. The second reached for his radio. I shot him through the wrist, then the heart when his mouth opened. Quiet returned. At container C-17, the black cross had been spray-painted low near the locking bar. Old loyalty, old rot. I signaled Marco. He cut the seal. Inside, we did not find guns. We found banker boxes, stacks of cash wrapped in plastic, passports banded by family name, burner phones sorted in foam trays, medical files, property deeds, council voting proxies, photographs. I pulled 1 file from the nearest crate. Langston House Outreach, transfer beneficiaries. Inside were photographs of women, children, young men. Some with fake names attached, some with council surnames. Others with no names at all, only destinations. Santoro was not only buying votes, he was moving people, hiding heirs, smuggling witnesses, creating leverage with charity money and old promises. Marco lifted another packet. Boss. I took it. A dossier. Tasha Johns, secondary leverage, safe house breach authorized. My vision went black at the edges. There were photographs of her entering the Anderson safe house, a timestamp from before her abduction, a guard rotation schedule, notes on her relationship to Amelia. At the bottom sat a line that froze the air in my lungs. Council protection confirmed. Elder witness approved, no name. Just the formal seal only a sitting elder could use. One of them knew. One of those old cowards had sat in St. Bridget, watched Amelia stand in red before them, and already known Santoro had plans for her cousin. I folded the file slowly. "Greg," Amelia said in my ear. Her tone cut through the rage. "What?" "Your crane 7 feet just looped." I looked up. Nothing moved. "Explain." "The same girl flew past twice." Mateo muttered, "She's watching birds now." Amelia ignored him. Camera on West Lane froze for 4 seconds, restarted with an old frame. Luca is standing in the blind spot. My head turned toward the west perimeter. "Luca," I said, static. Then Amelia's voice cracked like a whip. "Luca, drop." He dropped. A burst of gunfire tore through the space where his head had been. The yard erupted. Muzzle flashes sparked from Container Road D. 2 men came out high from the crane platform. Another rolled from beneath a tarp near the customs shed. Ambush. I moved. There was no thought after that. Only math, distance, angles, blood. I shot the first man on the crane through the neck. Marco took the second before he could swing his rifle down. Mateo's team hit Road D from the side, suppressors coughing fast. Luca rolled behind a forklift, came up with his rifle, and put 2 rounds into the shooter who had nearly killed him. "Blind spot is under crane 7, Amelia said. 3 more heat signatures behind the blue container. 1 moving left. No, 2 left. Greg, your right side is open." I pivoted before the man cleared the corner. He came with a shotgun. I broke his wrist against the container wall, drove my knife under his ribs, and held his eyes while he realized I was not in the mood to let him die quickly. "Who sent you?" He choked. I twisted the blade. "Who?" "Santoro," he gasped. "Where is he?" His mouth filled with blood. "Greg," Marco warned. I pulled the knife free and shot the man behind him before the bastard finished raising his pistol. The last of Santoro's men tried to run for the river. Luca caught him alive. Barely. By the time the yard went quiet again, 7 bodies cooled on wet concrete. 2 Anderson men were wounded but breathing, and Santoro's shipment belonged to me. Luca came over the comm, breathing hard. "Mrs. Anderson?" The security room went silent. I stood very still. Amelia's answer came softer. "Yes. Thank you." No joke, no flirtation, no casual charm, respect. "You're welcome," she said. In the background, Tasha whispered, "Mrs. Anderson needs business cards." Luca laughed once, rough and shaken. I looked at the container full of money, passports, and council sins. Amelia had saved him. Not by accident, not by luck. She had seen the thing no one else saw and given an order with death 2 seconds away. My men had obeyed, and Luca was alive because of it. Essential. The words settled in my chest like a loaded gun. Marco dragged the captured Santoro man to his knees in front of me. He was young, bleeding from his eyebrow and thigh, trying to pretend fear had not pissed down the back of his throat. I crouched before him. "You're going to tell me where Santoro is?" He smiled with red teeth. Too late. I pressed my gun to his kneecap. His smile vanished. "Try again." "He knew you'd come here," the man spat. "He wanted you to see the files, see the rot." I shot his knee. His scream tore across the yard and disappeared into the river wind. I waited until he could hear me again. "Where is Santoro?" "I don't know," he sobbed. I swear on my mother." "I don't know your mother." Marco bent near his ear. "He'll kill her too if you waste time." The man shook violently. "I only know the next place." I leaned closer. "What place?" He looked up at me, then past me toward the open container, toward the evidence, toward the black cross stamped on every ugly secret Santoro had dragged out of the grave. "The final strike," he whispered. "Santoro already chose it." My grip tightened around the gun. "Where?" The man swallowed. Then he smiled again, because dead men sometimes mistook information for protection. Your second wedding ceremony.
For 3 whole seconds, no one in the penthouse security room spoke. Not me, not Tasha, not the guards lining the walls. Even the monitors seemed quieter after Santoro's man whispered through Greg's comm, "Your second wedding ceremony." Then Tasha slowly set down her tea. "I'm sorry," she said, voice too calm to be healthy. "Did that man just schedule violence for your wedding like it's a brunch reservation?" I stared at the dock feed. Greg stood in the rain and sodium light, blood on his cuff, gun in his hand, body so still he looked carved out of something ruthless. Marco had the captured man on his knees in front of him. Luca stood near the containers, alive because I had noticed a stupid bird fly past twice. Mrs. Anderson. He had called me Mrs. Anderson. And now Santoro wanted to turn the name into another battlefield. Greg's voice came through my earpiece, cold enough to frost glass. "Bring him." The man started begging. Greg did not answer. I watched Marco haul him up while Matteo's team emptied the container full of cash, passports, files, and every ugly secret Santoro had hidden inside charity names and holy words. Tasha leaned closer to me. "You okay?" "No." "Good. I was worried we were lying now." I exhaled a laugh that had no humor in it. My hands were steady on the console, but inside, everything shook. Not fear this time. Not exactly. Anger. Santoro had used my cousin as a bomb. He had attacked my ceremony. He had made Greg choose between vengeance and family, then thought that meant he had found weakness. Men like him always thought love made women softer. He had no idea what love had done to me. By dawn, the underworld had teeth. No newspapers reported what happened at the Meridian. Not really. The official story involved a private security incident, a gas leak, and a wealthy donor fainting dramatically near the floral arch. But Greg's phones lit up with messages from men who never said what they meant unless a gun was involved. Condolences from rivals. Concern from neutral brokers. Respectful inquiries from council associates. Every word was dressed in silk and carrying a knife. They thought the failed ceremony had humiliated him. They thought Santoro had made Greg Anderson bleed in public. I sat in Greg's office when he returned from the docks, still in his black suit, rain drying in his dark hair, blood drying darker along his knuckles. He had the files from Pier 41 delivered in sealed crates. Marco looked exhausted. Luca looked pissed. Matteo looked like he wanted someone to volunteer for murder. Greg only looked at me. "Out," he said. Everyone left except Tasha, who pointed at herself like she was personally offended. Greg looked at her. She stood with her blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Fine. But if this is a sex thing, please remember some of us almost died today, and deserve warning." "Tasha," I said. "I'm going. Trauma exit stage left." When the door shut behind her, Greg crossed the room. "I want a judge here tonight," he said. I blinked. "Good morning to you too. A sealed license, private ceremony, legal, binding, immediate. The council can challenge a fiancé. They cannot challenge my wife without declaring war on my bloodline." My heart twisted. Because part of me wanted to say yes. Not because I was scared. Because I loved him. Because I wanted his name. Because every time someone said Mrs. Anderson, something dangerous and warm opened inside me. But not like that. Not as emergency paperwork. Not because Santoro snapped his fingers and made us react. "No," I said. Greg's jaw tightened. "Amelia. No. You understand what this protects?" "I understand exactly what it protects. I also understand what it steals." He went still. I stood and came around the desk. The ruined red dress from the ceremony brushed against my thighs. His shirt still hung over it, black over red, his over mine. "I am going to marry you in front of every enemy who thought I was bait," I said. "I am going to stand beside you publicly, in red, with my curls out and my lipstick on, and I am going to watch them choke on it." His eyes darkened. "But I will not let Santoro make my wedding feel like panic," I continued. I will not become your wife because a villain with tragic timing announced a sequel. A muscle jumped in his cheek. Then slowly he said, "There is another vow." I waited. "Not legal," he said. "Older. Anderson blood oath. It was used before courts mattered, before papers, before men trusted signatures. That sounds intensely illegal. It is, obviously. It binds you to the family." I narrowed my eyes. Define binds. His gaze held mine. Blood, protection, consequences, and obedience. The silence told on him. I laughed once. "Greg?" "It is old wording. So is women not having bank accounts. We've updated." Something moved in his face. Not amusement. Not quite. Respect, maybe. Or hunger wearing a better suit. "I can show you," he said. The hidden room was behind his father's library. Of course it was. Greg pressed his palm to a dark panel between shelves of leather-bound ledgers, and part of the wall opened without sound. Behind it, narrow stairs led down into a room I never would have guessed existed beneath the penthouse. It was not a chapel exactly. It was a vault, pretending to have a soul. Black stone walls, low amber lights, a long table scarred by knife marks. Steel boxes built into the walls, each stamped with the Anderson crest. Old photographs in silver frames watched from the shadows. Men with dead eyes, women with hard mouths, children dressed like heirs before they knew what inheritance cost. At the far end stood a glass case holding rings, weapons, and a thin ceremonial blade with a black handle. Greg stopped beside it. "My father brought me here when I was 16, he said. "He cut my palm and made me swear obedience to the name before he ever called me son." The words sat between us like dust. I looked at him. This dangerous man who had been trained to be empty, who had somehow still made room for me. "And you believed him?" I asked softly. "I believed survival required it." I stepped closer. "And now?" He opened the glass case and took out the blade. "Now I know obedience makes useful soldiers." His eyes met mine. "Loyalty makes family." My throat tightened. "Good answer." He held out the blade, handle first. My pulse kicked. "You want me to cut myself?" "I will do it." "No." I took the knife. My blood. My hand. His expression sharpened with approval. The blade kissed my palm. Pain flashed clean and bright. I did not flinch. Greg cut his own hand next, deeper, because of course the man even bled like he was making a threat. He reached for me. Our palms pressed together. His blood was hot against mine. "Say the vow," he said. I lifted my chin. He began in a low voice. "My blood to your blood. My name over your body. My protection over your life. Your obedience to my house." "No." His mouth stopped. I held his stare. "Try again. Amelia. I will not obey a house that once held men like Vincent in honor. I will not obey a council that watched my cousin become leverage. I will not obey just because a dead man wrote pretty words in a ledger." I squeezed his bleeding hand. "I will be loyal. To you. To the people who stand with us. To the family we choose. And the blood we protect. Loyalty. Not obedience." The vault seemed to hold its breath. Then Greg said, "Loyalty." My chest hurts. He repeated the vow, changed because I asked him to change it. "My blood to your blood," he said. "My name with your name. My protection over your life. Your loyalty to my house. And mine to you." I swallowed hard. "My blood to your blood," I said. "My name with your name. My loyalty to your house, as long as your house is loyal to me." His eyes burned. "And?" I asked. A dark brow lifted. "You know what I want." His grip tightened around my hand. I stepped closer, blood between us, mouth near his. "You want me, Anderson? Say what that cost you." For a second, the monster looked almost undone. Then Greg Anderson bowed his head until his forehead touched mine. "Everything," he said. "I belong to you." The kiss that followed was not gentle. It was a vow with teeth. He backed me into the scarred table, hands hard on my hips, mouth claiming mine like the room. The blood, the ghosts in the walls all belonged to us now. I tore at his jacket. He shoved the shirt off my shoulders, then stripped the ruined red silk down my body with a roughness that made my breath catch. "Tell me to stop," he growled against my throat. "Don't you dare!" He lifted me onto the table. Cold stone hit the backs of my thighs. His fingers slid between them, found me already wet, and his expression turned brutal with satisfaction. "This is mine," he said. I caught his jaw. "And you're mine." He pushed 2 fingers inside me, slow and deep, watching my face while my body clenched around him. "Say it again." "You're mine." His control snapped. The belt came open. His pants followed. Then he was between my thighs, his cock pressing inside me in one hard, filling thrust that tore a gasp out of my chest. I wrapped my legs around him and took the force of him, the heat, the rage, the devotion dressed up as dominance. He fucked me on the old Anderson table with our blood drying between our palms, one hand at my throat, the other under my ass, dragging me into every punishing stroke. Not breakable, not decoration, not bait. His. Mine. I came with his name in my mouth and my nails in his back, and he followed with a low, rough curse, burying himself deep, like he could seal the oath there too. Afterward, he held me against his chest in the vault, while my legs remembered how to be useful. "So," I said, breathless, "do I get a certificate for that internship?" His mouth brushed my temple. "You get a kingdom." "Does it come with snacks?" That finally pulled the smallest smile from him. When we emerged, Tasha was waiting in the hallway with a blanket, a mug, and the face of a woman who had already formed an opinion. She looked me up and down. My hair was a disaster. Greg's shirt was buttoned wrong over me. My lipstick had abandoned dignity. There was a smear of blood on my palm, and probably sex written all over my walk. Tasha sipped her tea. "You look like you got married, murdered, and satisfied in that order." Greg walked past her. "Not married." "Please." Spiritually, that hallway had a tax filing. I leaned against the wall and laughed because if I didn't, I might cry. For one fragile moment, the penthouse felt warm. Alive. Ours. Then Elena appeared at the far end of the hall. She carried a long white garment box in both hands. Every guard near her had a gun drawn. Greg's entire body changed. "What is it?" he asked. Elena's face was calm, but her eyes were hard. "Delivered through the secure service channel. Authorization code was valid." Marco cursed behind her. The box was addressed in black ink. The almost wife. My stomach dropped. Greg took the lid off himself. White tissue paper rustled. Then the smell hit me. Iron, blood. Inside the box lay a red dress I knew down to the seams. My original red dress. The one Bianca had ruined. The one that should have been discarded, destroyed, forgotten. Someone had cleaned it, repaired it, folded it like a gift, and across the bodice, fresh blood soaked into the red fabric, darker than the rest, still shining under the hall lights. The blood was still wet.
The blood was still wet. I did not touch the dress. I did not need to. The smell reached me from inside the box. Hot iron beneath expensive tissue paper, an old perfume that should have been dead months ago. Red silk, repaired seams. Fresh blood dragged across the bodice like a signature. The almost wife. Santoro wanted Amelia looking at a ghost of herself. He wanted me looking at proof that he could still reach into my house. I shut the lid. "Eleanor," I said. She straightened immediately. "Yes, sir." "Seal every service channel. Kill all standing authorization codes. No delivery enters this building without blood verification and my voice." Already started. "Marco." He was at my left before I finished saying his name. "Find every person who touched that box from the loading dock to this hallway. alive. Marco's eyes went black. Understood. Tasha goes to the East Wing with Rosa and 6 men. Tasha opened her mouth. I looked at her. She closed it, then lifted one finger. For the record, I am complying under protest, because I have grown emotionally attached to not exploding. Rosa appeared behind her with a blanket, and the face of a woman prepared to fight God with kitchenware. Come, Tasha pointed at the box. If that dress starts crawling, burn the building down. Amelia did not laugh. She stood beside me, silent. Her bandaged palm curled at her side from the oath she had taken in my family vault. My shirt still covered her, but there was nothing borrowed in how she held herself now. She looked at the box like she was memorizing it for trial. Who had it? She asked. The dress? Yes, Greg, the evil laundry resurrection. I kept my eyes on the box. After Bianca ruined it, I ordered it removed. Removed where? House disposal channel. Her gaze cut to mine. Sharp, too sharp. Who signed off? I already knew. That was why rage had gone quiet inside me. Vincent. Amelia's face did not change, but the air around her did. Marco swore under his breath. Vincent was in my custody. Wounded, watched, no calls, no visitors, no movement beyond the basement cage I'd put him in. But Vincent Moretti had served my family for 30 years. 30 years meant habits, codes, men who still answered when old loyalty whispered. The package had not come because Santoro was clever. It had come because some part of my own organization still remembered Vincent as a voice worth obeying. That ended tonight. Bring him up, I said. Marco paused. Boss. Up. The basement was made for pain. Stone, drains, no windows, no softness. It was where men went when I wanted screams to disappear. But Vincent did not deserve the mercy of being hidden. I had him dragged to the West War Room, the one above the city with walls of ballistic glass and screens that could pull every account, camera, and old ledger tied to the Anderson name. If a loyalist wanted to remember him as an elder statesman, they would see him broken beneath the crest he betrayed. He came in limping between 2 guards, shirt stained, face swollen, silver hair no longer perfect. Still, he smiled when he saw the garment box on the table. Sentimental, he rasped. I hit him before he finished enjoying the word. His head snapped sideways. Blood spilled fresh from his mouth. Amelia stepped into the room behind me. No, I said without turning. Yes, she answered. I looked back. She had changed into black trousers and a fitted dark sweater, curls pulled away from her face, red lipstick reapplied with lethal precision. The bandage around her palm was clean. Her eyes were not. This betrayal touched me, she said. That dress was mine. That message was mine. I'm not waiting in the hallway like furniture with opinions. Vincent gave a thin laugh. She speaks to you like that now. I turned back to him. Keep looking at me. She rewrites oaths, enters war rooms, gives orders to soldiers. Your father would have cut out the rot before it reached the heart. The room went very still. There were few men alive stupid enough to hide behind my father. Vincent, unfortunately for him, had always considered history a shield. My father is dead, I said. Stop wearing his corpse. His smile twitched. Your father understood discipline. He understood that a don alone is untouchable. Then you let a woman climb into your car and turn you into a man who negotiates. I leaned down until he could see exactly what was waiting behind my eyes. I let Santoro breathe because Amelia chose her cousin's life. That was not negotiation. That was command. Something flickered in Vincent's expression. Not fear, disgust. She has made you proud of weakness. My hand closed around the knife on the table. Before I could use it, Amelia moved. Not quickly, not dramatically, She simply walked around me and stopped in front of Vincent's chair. He looked up at her like she was an insect he had found wearing a crown. "You know what's sad?" she asked. His eyes narrowed. "You really believe emptiness is strength?" Vincent sneered. "Little girl." "No." Her voice stayed calm. "Men like you love that phrase because it makes you feel tall. You built an entire religion out of silence and called it discipline. You mistook loneliness for control. You convinced a boy that being loved would make him weak because nobody ever loved you well enough to make you dangerous." The knife remained in my hand, unused. For the first time in my life, I watched Vincent Moretti bleed from a wound no blade had made. Amelia stepped closer. "You looked at Greg and saw a weapon you helped sharpen. Then I walked in and suddenly he had something to protect besides power. That terrified you, not because it weakened him." Her smile was small and brutal, because it made him harder to predict. Vincent's swollen mouth curled. "You think he will let you keep that mouth?" "She has this long," I said. Amelia did not glance at me. "You sent my dress because you thought I'd feel humiliated. I don't. I like that dress. I'm annoyed about the blood, but frankly, I've seen worse tailoring choices." A sound came from Marco near the door. Not quite a laugh. He buried it fast. Vincent's control cracked. "You have no idea what is coming." "There he is," Amelia said softly. His eyes snapped to hers. She had found the loose thread and pulled. I watched her do it with the same cold focus I used to watch men handle guns. "You wanted Greg to spill blood at the ceremony," she said. "Not because Santoro thinks he can beat him in a fair fight. Santoro doesn't do fair. He wants witnesses, council seals, neutral ground." Vincent said nothing. Amelia tilted her head. "If Greg kills on neutral ground, the council declares him unfit, too emotional, too violent, too compromised by his almost wife." Vincent's breathing changed. My grip tightened on the knife. She turned to the wall screen and tapped the tablet Elena had brought in. Cathedral Restoration LLC bloomed across the glass in neat columns. Payments, dates, transfers. The black cross stamped beside roots like a curse. "But Santoro made a mistake," Amelia continued. "He paid for everything through pretty little holy accounts. Cathedral, St. Bridget, Langston House. He didn't just bribe council votes. He built a paper altar and sacrificed subtlety on it." Vincent stared at the screen. For the first time he looked old. Not dignified, not dangerous. Old. "You missed the pattern," Amelia said. I didn't. There it was, the defeat. Not complete, but enough. Vincent's hands flexed against the restraints. His pride had survived broken fingers, blood loss, and my temper. It did not survive Amelia understanding his machine. "You think evidence matters?" he snapped. "Evidence is for courts. This is blood." "No," I said. "This is succession." His gaze cut to mine. "Name," I said. He laughed, but there was rot in it now. "Kill me." "I will," I said. "After." Amelia leaned in, her voice lowering. "You helped Santoro put my cousin in a bomb vest. You used jealous staff, charity money, and council cowards to make everyone think Greg's love was the liability." She paused. "Tell us which elder approved Tasha's abduction before I stop being the nice one in this relationship." Vincent looked at her, then at me. Something like hatred crawled over his ruined face. "Aldo Belandi," he said. Marco cursed. I felt the name settle like a bullet in the room. Elder Aldo Belandi. Old blood. Neutral voice. The man who had sat beneath stained glass at St. Bridget and folded his hands while Amelia exposed Vincent's accounts. The man who had looked at Tasha's name on a dossier and approved it as leverage. "He holds the emergency seal," Vincent said, breathing hard now. "At the second ceremony, Belandi will declare the ground neutral. Santoro will force your hand. If you spill first blood, The council strips you before witnesses and names Santoro protector until a new dawn is crowned. Amelia's jaw tightened. Vincent smiled at me through blood. Your father would have seen it coming. I stepped toward him. Amelia did not stop me this time. Good. I wanted Vincent alive long enough to watch every man who had ever respected him spit on his name. I wanted Belandi dragged from his marble house. I wanted Santoro's empire gutted account by account until he had nothing left but fear and whatever time I decided to leave him. Vincent watched my face and seemed to understand his death was no longer the punishment. His legacy was. I turned to Marco. Lock down Belandi's family holdings. Freeze anything tied to Cathedral, quietly. I want him smiling at breakfast before he realizes his house is already burning. Marco nodded. I looked back at Vincent. As for you, the glass behind him bloomed white. A sound like thunder cracked through the room. Vincent's head snapped forward, then back, a dark hole opening above his brow before blood sprayed across the Anderson crest on the wall. Amelia inhaled sharply. I moved before the second shot came. I slammed her to the floor beneath me as the ballistic window spiderwebbed again, glass screaming under another impact. Vincent's body jerked once in the chair. Then he hung still, blood dripping onto my war room floor while somewhere beyond the penthouse glass, a sniper adjusted his aim.
The world became Greg's body, the taste of dust and Vincent Moretti's blood across the wall. Greg's weight was not gentle. It was survival. He covered me completely. One arm locked around my head, the other braced near my shoulder as another shot cracked against the ballistic glass. The window screamed but held. I could see Vincent from beneath Greg's shoulder, or what was left of Vincent. His silver hair hung forward. Blood dripped from his chair onto the floor in steady, obscene little taps. For a man who had spent decades talking about legacy, he died making a mess on the carpet. "Stay down," Greg ordered. "I'm aggressively down." His eyes cut to mine. Yes, apparently sarcasm survived sniper fire. Good to know. Alarms rolled through the penthouse, low and brutal. Not the shrieking kind normal buildings used when Toast got ambitious. This sound had teeth. Steel shutters began dropping over interior glass. Doors sealed with heavy metallic thuds, one after another. Marco shouted into his comm. Luca answered from somewhere below. Elena's voice came through the wall speaker, calm as a funeral bell. "West War Room compromised. Lockdown level 4 engaged. Staff moving to secured corridors." Greg lifted just enough to scan me. His hand went to my face, my throat, my ribs, searching for blood. "I'm not hit," I said. He checked anyway. Because Greg Anderson trusted many things. Guns, contracts, fear. But not the universe when it came to me. His palm paused against my cheek. There was blood on his cuff. Vincent's, not his, not mine. Then his expression closed. "Sniper is northwest," he said into his comm. "High angle, between 49th and the river. Mateo, with me. Marco, hold lower access. Luca, seal service routes." "Copy," Marco said. Greg stood and dragged me up with him, keeping his body between me and the shattered view. The war room looked violated. Screens still glowed with cathedral accounts and Aldo Bellandi's name, while Vincent's body sagged beneath the Anderson crest. Death, ledgers, betrayal. Very on brand for my week. Greg turned to me. "You and Tasha are leaving." "No." His jaw tightened. "Amelia." "I heard you." "Good. Then obey." I stared at him. Even through alarms, blood, and a dead traitor cooling behind us, the word landed wrong. Greg knew it immediately. Something dark moved behind his eyes. Regret, maybe. Rage at himself for giving me the one word we had just cut out of the oath. "I did not mean—" "Yes, you did," I said. "And no. This sniper just reached my war room. Then go kill him. I am moving you and Tasha to a deeper safe house." I stepped closer. I am done being evacuated from my own life. The room went still around us. Marco, who had been halfway to the door, stopped pretending not to listen. Greg's voice dropped. This is not the moment to test me. This is exactly the moment. My heart was still trying to beat its way out of my chest, but I made my voice steady. Santoro fires a shot, and I run. He sends a box, and I hide. He puts my cousin in a bomb vest, and he gets to decide where I live afterward. Greg's nostrils flared. This is my home now, I said. Tasha is here. Rosa is here. Elena is here. The staff is here. Your men are here. Our people are here. I'm not leaving them behind because Santoro wants me scared. You think I can hunt a sniper and worry about you at the same time? No, I said. That's why you're going to trust me. Trust looked painful on him. Good. Growth should hurt a little. For 1 second, I thought he might throw me over his shoulder and carry me out like the emotionally constipated warlord he was. Instead, he gripped the back of my neck and pulled my mouth to his. The kiss was hard, fast, furious, a warning and a promise. When he released me, his forehead stayed against mine. Security room or kitchen wing, he said. No hero shit. Define hero shit. Amelia. Fine. Minimal hero shit. His mouth almost moved. Then he was gone. The second Greg left, the penthouse changed. Not quieter. Never quieter. The building was too alive for that. But the center of gravity shifted, and everyone looked for where to place their fear. Unfortunately for them, I was standing there. Elena appeared at the corridor entrance with a tablet in one hand and a pistol in the other. Her hair was still perfect. Her face said she had personally disliked chaos since birth. Mrs. Anderson, she said. My throat caught. Not now. Absolutely not now. Yes. Staff corridors are sealed from the east. We have 12 staff on this floor, 6 in the residence wing, 4 in laundry, 2 in service storage. Rosa has Tasha. Is Rosa armed? Elena's expression did not change. Rosa is always armed. Fair. We moved. I had shoes on when we left the war room. I lost one near the gallery and kicked off the other because sprinting in half a pair of heels felt like dying stupidly. By the time we reached the security room, I was barefoot, angry, and holding the gun Greg had shoved into my hand before he ran toward murder. Tasha was already at the central console, blanket gone, curls tied back, eyes huge but focused. You look like shit, she said. You look kidnapped but employed. Growth. Rosa stood behind her with a frying pan in one hand. Why do you have that? I asked. She gave me a look. Because men bleed when hit hard enough. I decided not to argue with culinary wisdom. The first breach alarm flashed red. Service elevator override. Then a second. East stairwell fire door. Then a third. Lower loading access. Santoro was knocking on every door at once. Marco's voice snapped through comms. Contact at lower access. 2 teams. Luca followed. Service elevator jammed between floors. They're trying to force the shaft. Elena started issuing orders before I could breathe. Staff Group 1 to pantry corridor. Group 2 hold laundry until I release door 12. I watched the screens. Too many alarms. Too clean. Greg had said something during lessons that now came back with obnoxious clarity. The loud door is rarely the real door. Santoro wanted panic. Panic scattered people. Scattered people became hostages. I looked at the building map. Elena, what route did Vincent use most when he didn't want staff to know he was here? She looked at me sharply. Then her finger moved across the tablet. Old catering corridor. It runs behind the kitchen wall. Manual latch, not on main elevator grid. Of course. Of fucking course. Men like Vincent always came through servant doors and called themselves honorable. Camera? I asked. 2. One feed was black. The other showed an empty corridor. Too empty. Then I saw it. A silver blur in the reflection of a stainless steel prep table. Not a man. Not fully. A gun barrel. They're already in the kitchen corridor, I said. Elena's eyes went cold. That route leads to staff shelter. Tasha stood. Move them through Pantry 2. Not 1. Pantry 1 dumps into kitchen access. Elena looked at her. Tasha shrugged. I pay attention when people tell me where snacks are. Do it, I said. My voice came out stronger than I felt. Tasha grabbed the internal mic. Everybody in staff shelter, this is Tasha. Your friendly neighborhood almost bomb victim. You are going to move calmly through Pantry 2. If you run, I will judge your cardio and your choices. Go now. People moved. On the screens, a line of terrified staff slipped through the back corridor, exactly where Tasha sent them. Elena sealed doors behind each group with crisp taps. The 2 attackers entered the kitchen corridor 30 seconds later. Masks, black gear, suppressed weapons. They expected panic. They found locked steel. Door 14 open, I said. Elena looked at me. Trust me. She opened it. The first attacker stepped through. The second followed. Now close 14 and 16. Steel slammed down on both sides. The men spun, trapped in the short hall between the pantry and cold storage. One fired into the lock. The bullet ricocheted and made him flinch. I leaned toward the mic. Hi, I said. You've reached the Anderson residence. We're unavailable for hostage situations at the moment. Please die mad about it. Tasha stared at me. That was unprofessional. I'm new. A third man came out of the blacked-out kitchen feed. Not trapped. Closer. Too close. He shoved through the side door before Elena could seal it fully, and suddenly he was in our kitchen, gun rising. Everything narrowed. Not because I was fearless. I was terrified. My hands were slick. My mouth went dry. My body wanted to duck, scream, disappear. But behind me, Rosa pushed Tasha back. Elena was still sealing staff doors. The house was watching. I lifted Greg's gun with both hands. The first shot hit the marble island. The second hit the man in the chest. He staggered. Rosa came around me and swung the frying pan into his face with a crack so ugly I felt it in my teeth. He dropped hard, weapons skidding across the floor. Rosa stood over him, breathing heavily. I told you, she said. I become dangerous. I stared at her. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because if I didn't, I was going to sit down on the kitchen floor and start shaking in front of everyone. So I laughed, and Tasha laughed, and even Elena's mouth twitched, while 2 trapped attackers cursed behind sealed doors, and Marco's voice reported lower access secure. By the time Greg returned, the kitchen smelled like gunpowder, fear, garlic, and whatever Rosa had abandoned on the stove, before deciding to become a one-woman militia. I stood barefoot near the island with the gun still in my hand. Rosa was behind me holding her frying pan like a holy weapon. Tasha sat on the counter with a knife she had absolutely stolen from somewhere. Elena stood by the security panel, immaculate and terrifying. Greg entered with blood on his collar and murder in his eyes. He stopped. His gaze moved over me first, fast and vicious, counting limbs, breath, blood. Then over Rosa, Tasha, Elena. The staff clustered safely behind the reinforced pantry doors, the trapped men visible on the monitor, the body on the floor. No one was screaming. No one was running. They were all looking at me. Greg saw it. I watched him understand. The house had not just protected me. It had followed me. Sniper? I asked. Gone, he said. Nest cleared before we reached it. Of course. Santoro had never planned to win that way. The sniper killed Vincent and pulled Greg out of the penthouse. The breach tested the house. Tested me. My phone buzzed on the kitchen island. Every head turned. Unknown number. A voice message waited on the screen. Greg reached for it. I got there first. His eyes flashed. I pressed play before he could stop me. Santoro's voice filled the kitchen, smooth and pleased. Now you understand, Queen. A throne is only yours if you can keep it.
Santoro's voice died in my kitchen. For a moment no one moved. Amelia stood barefoot beside the island, gun still in her hand, dark curls loose around her face, red mouth set in a line that did not tremble. Rosa held her frying pan like a relic. Tasha had a knife. Eleanor had a tablet full of locked doors and the calm expression of a woman already planning a cleaning schedule around blood. A throne is only yours if you can keep it. I wanted Santoro's throat in my hand. Instead, I looked at Amelia. She looked back at me and said, "Then we keep it." There were moments when a man understood his life had divided cleanly into before and after. That was one of mine. By midnight, the penthouse had become a machine. Vincent's body was removed from the West War Room. The shattered ballistic glass was sealed behind steel. The two men Amelia had trapped between security doors were taken downstairs screaming. The man Rosa had introduced to cookware was still breathing, but only because Marco wanted answers. The answers were obvious. Santoro had not expected to take the penthouse. He had expected to test it. He had tested my house and found my woman standing at the center of it. That would be his last lesson. We did not return to the formal war room. Amelia refused to sit near the wall where Vincent's blood had dried beneath the crest, so the kitchen became command. It fit her better anyway. Maps covered the island, guest lists, security routes, council seating charts, old Meridian blueprints, the emergency seal protocols Belandi intended to use. Luca stood near the pantry door with a bruise along his jaw. Marco leaned over surveillance grids. Matteo circled names in black ink. Tasha sat on the counter eating toast like trauma had personally offended her, and she was refusing to give it manners. "The flowers cannot look like somebody died before the ceremony starts," Amelia said. I looked up from the Meridian floor plan. She pointed at the arrangements Elena had ordered as decoys. No ugly flowers, no armed funeral decoration energy, real food, a dress I can move in, hidden weapons that do not ruin the silhouette. Tasha lifted her toast. "Amen." "This is not a wedding consultation," I said. Amelia looked at me. "It absolutely is. It is a trap. Then it can be a trap with taste." Marco coughed into his fist. I ignored him. Amelia leaned over the island, palm flat on the map. The bandage from our blood oath wrapped her hand. My blood had dried with hers hours ago, in the vault beneath our feet, and still I could feel the cut like a brand. "We are not bait," she said. Everyone went quiet. Her eyes held mine. "Santoro wants me standing there so he can use me to make you lose control. Belandi wants the council watching so he can call your violence proof. They think they know the roles." Her mouth curved, sharp and beautiful. "So we changed the play. You intend to stand in the center of a room Santoro has already targeted. I intend to stand beside my almost husband in front of every coward who thought I would run." My jaw locked. Tasha waved half a piece of toast between us. "For the record, as the cousin most recently accessorized with explosives, I support the murder wedding, provided there are exits and cake." "There will be 12 exits," Elena said. "And cake?" Elena paused. "Rosa has made 3. Tasha nodded. "Acceptable." I should have stopped it there. I should have taken Amelia to one of the deep properties outside the city, locked every door, and hunted Santoro until Manhattan ran red. That instinct was old. It had kept me alive. But Amelia was no longer something life had dropped into my car by accident. She was the woman my house followed when bullets came through the walls. So I gave her the entire plan. No omissions, no softened edges. Belandi would be allowed to attend. He would believe his accounts remained untouched, his emergency seal still valid, his betrayal undiscovered. The council would be seated according to old protocol, with cameras hidden in the columns and exits controlled from 3 separate command points. Tasha would be in the rear security suite with Elena, not visible from the floor, but wired into guest movement and staff evacuation. "I'm not hiding," Tasha said. "You are coordinating. Amelia corrected. Tasha considered that. That sounds more emotionally powerful. Fine. Luca would control interior corridors. Marco had the outer perimeter. Matteo would move through the crowd dressed as Meridian security. Rosa refused to leave the kitchen staff, which meant I had to accept that one of my most dangerous defensive lines now involved a woman with knives hidden in flour bins. Amelia watched every decision. She asked questions no one else asked. Where does Belandi stand when he declares neutral ground? North side, I said, near the council table. Then do not let him stand there. He has protocol. He has arthritis and arrogance. Put his chair farther from the center and make him walk. Luca laughed once. Belandi's position was moved. 2 hours before dawn, Amelia found the final proof. Not because she was trained for this life, because she listened to it differently. She sat at the kitchen table with cathedral ledgers, Santoro's doc files, and 3 cups of coffee she had forgotten to drink. I was across from her reviewing kill lanes when she went still. Greg. 1 word. No sarcasm. Every man in the room turned. She tapped a column on the screen. These transfers are not bribes. I came behind her, one hand on the back of her chair. The names were familiar. Belandi, Marchesi, Varro, De Luca, council families who had funded Santoro through Cathedral Restoration, LLC, and St. Brigid Community Trust. Men who believed they were buying themselves a safer dawn. These are return payments, Marco said. No. Amelia enlarged the final column. Look at the dates. The payments were scheduled after the ceremony, not to the men, to heirs, widows, secondary holding companies. Then Amelia opened another folder from the Pier 41 shipment. Passports, medical records, black cross marks beside each name, routes out of the country for wives and children, assassination fees disguised as condolence funds. Santoro planned to kill them, she said softly. The same council members helping him. The kitchen went silent. I read the evidence once, then again. My anger became clean. He was never trying to be crowned by them, Amelia said. He was using them to weaken you. Then he was going to remove every man who could challenge him after. I bent and pressed my mouth to her temple. Not gentle, reverent. You just ended him, I said. She looked up at me, eyes tired, fierce. Not yet. No, not yet. But tomorrow, in front of every man who had mistaken her for leverage, she would slit Santoro's empire open without touching a blade. The night before my wedding, I stood alone in my office and considered betrayal by instinct, not of Amelia. For Amelia, there was still time to send her away. There was always time to become the monster that chose control over trust. The door opened. I did not turn. You should be sleeping. You should be less predictable. Her reflection appeared in the glass. Amelia wore one of my shirts and nothing else I could see. Her legs were bare, her curls spilled over her shoulders. On her mouth was that deep red lipstick she wore like a threat. Do not come in here if you want me sane, I said. She shut the door behind her. I'm not walking toward death tomorrow, she said. I'm walking toward you. My control cracked down the middle. I crossed the room and took her face in both hands, kissing her hard enough to steal the breath from both of us. She clutched my shirt, pulling, demanding, not waiting to be handled like something fragile. I need to know, I said against her mouth. No fear, no pressure, no oath forcing you. Her eyes burned into mine. I chose before you knew how to ask. That was the last merciful thing between us. I lifted her onto the desk, swept papers and ledgers to the floor, and shoved the shirt up her thighs. She opened for me with a low gasp that went straight through my blood. My hand slid between her legs, found her wet, ready, mine by choice and not captivity. "Say it," I ordered. Her nails dug into my wrist. "I'm yours." I pushed 2 fingers inside her, slow enough to make her curse. "And?" Her smile was wicked through the pleasure. "You're mine." I kissed the word off her tongue and fucked her with my hand until her thighs shook around my hips. She came with her teeth in my shoulder, muffling my name like she hated giving me the satisfaction. I liked satisfaction. I wanted worship. I opened my belt and drove into her in one hard thrust. She cried out, not breaking, not retreating. Her legs locked around me. Her hands dragged down my back. I held throat, not to silence her, never that, but to feel her pulse race under my palm while I took her the way she demanded to be taken. Rough, chosen, equal in the fire. "You do not step away from me tomorrow," I growled. I wasn't planning to. If he reaches for you, he loses the hand. I thrust deeper, harder, and her head fell back, lipstick smeared, eyes bright, body clenching around me like a vow. "That's my wife." "Almost," she breathed. "Mine." "Yes." I came buried inside her, forehead pressed to hers, the city burning silver beneath us. For several minutes there was only breath, heat, and the brutal quiet of 2 people choosing war because peace had been denied them. At dawn, the dress arrived. Not the ruined one, not Santoro's bloody message. This red was darker, richer, built like silk and armor had made a deal. Hidden seams, reinforced bodice, a slit high enough for movement and scandal, a blade sheath at the thigh, a small holster worked so carefully into the structure that even I had to respect the craft. Amelia touched the fabric. Tasha sniffed. "If anyone bleeds on this one before the vows, I'm suing the Mafia." My phone vibrated. Unknown number. The kitchen stilled. Amelia turned toward me as I opened the message. 6 words appeared on the screen. This time, I am already inside.
The text sat on Greg's phone like a bullet that had not decided where to land. This time, I am already inside. Nobody breathed. Then Greg moved. The kitchen snapped back into war. Marco was shouting into his comm. Luca was already at the door. Elena's fingers flew across her tablet, locking and relocking routes that had probably been locked 3 times already. Rosa crossed herself, then picked up a carving knife with the grim peace of a woman who had accepted God and violence could coexist. Greg looked at me. "No," I said. His eyes were pure murder. "I have not spoken. You were about to say cancel. I was about to say I am putting you somewhere Santoro cannot breathe near you. That sounds like cancel with extra kidnapping." Tasha, from her seat at the counter, lifted one finger. "As someone with recent experience, I vote no on extra kidnapping." Greg ignored her. "Amelia." I stepped closer, still holding the red dress against my body. Silk, armor, a weapon pretending to be a promise. "He says he's already inside?" I asked. Then we closed the doors. His jaw flexed. "Greg," I said, softer now because this part mattered. "If we run, he keeps choosing the room. He keeps choosing the fear. He keeps turning my life into a place I'm dragged from." I looked at the phone again. Not today. For a long moment, the monster I loved stared at me like trust was the only thing he could not kill his way through. Then he took the dress from my hands and gave it to Elena. "Every seam checked," he ordered. "Every stitch again." Elena nodded. "Already done twice." "Make it 3. Tasha slid off the counter. "I'll help. I am emotionally invested in this dress not exploding." 3 hours later, I walked into the Meridian in red. Not the first red, not the ruined red, not Santoro's sad little blood-soaked arts and crafts project. This dress was darker, deeper, cut to move with me. It held my waist like armor and flowed around my legs like fire had learned manners. There was a blade against my thigh, A slim pistol hidden where no woman should have had to hide one on her wedding day, and reinforced lining beneath the bodice. Fashion, but make it felony resistant. The ballroom had been rebuilt after the last attack. You could still feel the ghost of panic in the polished marble, but Rosa had bullied the kitchen staff into serving real food. The flowers were not ugly, and nobody had been allowed to decorate with what Tasha called armed funeral shrubbery. The council sat in their old-world formation near the front. Men with expensive suits, dead eyes, and enough guilt between them to fund a cathedral twice. Aldo Balandi sat in the center with his silver cane and his emergency seal resting against his ring finger. He looked older than he had at St. Brigid, but not sorry. Men like him rarely looked sorry before consequences. Greg waited at the front. Black suit, dark hair, tattoos visible at his cuffs and throat. No smile, no softness. He looked like a vow carved into a weapon. His eyes found me, and for 1 second the room disappeared. Then he held out his hand. I took it. His fingers closed around mine. Hard. Steady. Mine. "You good?" Tasha whispered through the tiny earpiece, hidden in my hair. "I'm walking in a weaponized dress toward a Mafia marriage ceremony, attended by corrupt elders, and probably an enemy assassin," I murmured. "So, you know, normal, engaged girl things. Love that for us." Elena's voice replaced hers. "All exits monitored. Staff secure. Belandi has requested ceremonial floor authority." Of course he had. Belandi rose before the officiant could begin. The room hushed with the kind of obedience old men mistook for respect. "Under council emergency authority," he announced, voice dry and self-important. "This ground is now declared neutral. Any blood spilled by the Anderson Syndicate will be considered proof of instability and grounds for immediate removal." "No," I said. Every head turned. Greg did not move, but his thumb stroked once across my knuckles. Belandi's eyes narrowed. "Mrs. Johns." "Careful," Greg said. The temperature dropped. Belandi swallowed the rest of whatever stupid thing had almost left his mouth. I stepped forward, my hand sliding free of Greg's. "Before any man speaks about neutrality from a chair bought with charity money, we're going to review the receipts." The screens behind the altar lit up. Cathedral Restoration LLC, St. Brigid Community Trust, Langston House. Black cross markers. Transfer dates. Names. For once, the ballroom froze without a bomb involved. Progress. "You all remember these accounts," I said. "Some of you donated through them. Some of you laundered through them. Some of you used them to pretend children and church walls were the reason your money kept moving in circles." Belandi's mouth tightened. "This is theatrics." "No, theatrics was strapping my cousin to explosives during my ceremony." I looked straight at him. "This is bookkeeping." Tasha came over the ballroom speakers, bright as hellfire. "Hi, Aldo. Bomb vest girl here. Terrible to hear your voice again." A few men shifted. Good. Let them shift. On the screen, Belandi's approval code appeared beside the authorization file tied to Tasha's abduction. Then came Vincent's transfers, Bianca's leaks, Pier 41, passports, payments routed to council heirs after today's ceremony, not bribes, condolences. I let them read enough to understand. "Santoro did not plan to rule with you," I said. "He planned to use you to weaken Greg, then kill the same council members who helped him. Your wives were going to get payouts. Your sons were going to get passports. Your mistresses were going to get apartments in Lisbon, which is generous, honestly, considering the taste level in this room." Nobody laughed. That was fine. I was not doing stand-up. I was performing an autopsy. Belandi slammed his cane once. "Lies." Elena's voice came through my earpiece. "Packages released. Every bank contact. Every rival family. Every corrupt official tied to Santoro's charities. Every man who had ever been paid to keep quiet. All of it went out. Santoro's empire did not explode. It began to hemorrhage." The side doors opened. Not forced. Authorized. Belandi's seal flashed green on the access panel, and Carlo Santoro walked into my wedding. Gray suit, smooth hair, empty eyes. He looked pleased with himself, which was always the first sign a man had not been hit hard enough in childhood. Behind him were 2 armed men in Meridian staff jackets. Marco moved from the west wall. Luca stepped from the east. Greg stayed beside me. Still. Deadly. Santoro smiled at the room like he had been invited for cake. "You found my paperwork. You should really consider better filing practices," I said. His gaze slid over me. "Still making jokes. Still not dead. We all have hobbies." He lifted a gun. The ballroom gasped. Greg's body went rigid beside me, every inch of him ready to tear the world open. Santoro watched him. "One step, Anderson, and your counsel sees exactly what I told them you were." His gun shifted toward me. There it was, the same old song. Use the woman. Break the monster. Call it strategy. I backed up 1 step. Greg's eyes cut to mine. I backed up again, slow enough for Santoro to believe I was afraid, fast enough for Greg to understand I was not improvising. The inner ceremonial chamber waited behind the altar. The Meridian called it historic. Greg called it useless. I had read the building contracts twice. It belonged to Anderson Control during private ceremonies, not council neutral ground. Santoro followed me toward it because men like him always believed a woman stepping back meant retreat. "Smart," he murmured. "You know how this ends." I smiled. "Do I?" He lunged. Greg moved. Santoro fired. The shot cracked through the ballroom and buried itself in the marble column beside Belandi's head. Neutral ground shattered under Santoro's own hand. People screamed. I ducked sideways, hit the concealed panel beneath the floral arch, and slipped through the narrow service gap just as Greg crossed the threshold after Santoro. Steel dropped. The inner chamber sealed. Santoro's face changed in the last inch before the doors closed. He understood too late. I was not the hostage. I was the door. The screens flickered, then switched to the chamber feed. Greg stood between Santoro and every exit. Santoro still had the gun. For about 3 seconds. Greg broke his wrist with one hand and took it from him with the other. The scream that followed was ugly, wet, and honest. No one in the ballroom moved. I stood in front of the sealed chamber, red dress untouched, heartbeat pounding in my throat, and watched the man who had put my cousin in a bomb vest learn what happened when Greg Anderson was finally allowed to stop being restrained. It was not clean. It was not quick. Greg did not perform rage. He administered it. Bone cracked. Santoro hit the wall. Blood sprayed across old stone. He tried to bargain once, but the words dissolved when Greg drove him down to his knees. "You wanted my wife," Greg said through the speaker, voice low enough to make the whole room shiver. "You get me." Santoro reached for the knife at his ankle. Greg caught his hand, bent his fingers back, and I heard the break from outside the chamber. I did not look away. Not because I enjoyed it. Because Santoro had counted on my horror, my softness, my need to turn from the monster and pretend I had chosen a man with clean hands. I had not. I had chosen Greg. All of him. When it ended, Santoro was on the floor, and Greg stood above him, chest rising, hands red, face splattered with blood that had tried and failed to make him look less beautiful to me. The chamber doors lifted. Greg stepped out. The ballroom stared. Councilmen, soldiers, staff, enemies, family. I walked to him. No hesitation, no flinch. His eyes searched mine, fierce and almost afraid beneath all that violence. I touched his bloody jaw. "You're late for the vows," I said. Something moved through his face that only I got to see. Behind us, Belandi was being dragged from his chair by Marco's men, sputtering about authority that had already died on screen. Another elder, Marchesi, rose slowly with both hands visible. "By oath and by evidence," he said, voice unsteady, "the council recognizes Amelia Johns under Anderson protection, and claim. His gaze flicked to Greg's bloody hands, then back to me. But, after what you have witnessed, do you still wish to complete this ceremony? Do you understand what the Anderson name requires? The room held its breath again. Honestly, for a group of violent criminals, they were dramatic as hell. I looked at Greg, my almost husband, my monster, my choice. Then I looked at the elder and lifted my chin. Start talking, I said, before I change the flower arrangements again. Start talking, I said, before I change the flower arrangements again. For one perfect second, nobody did. Greg stood beside me in his black suit, hands stained red, jaw set like he was still deciding whether the council deserved to keep breathing. Behind him, the sealed chamber yawned open, old stone marked with the last proof Carlos Santoro had ever existed. The ballroom smelled like roses, gunpowder, expensive fear, and Greg. Honestly, not the worst wedding atmosphere we'd had. Marchese lowered his gaze first. Cowardice wore many suits, but his was tailored beautifully. An older councilman I didn't recognize stepped forward. His hair was white, his hands steady, and unlike Belandi, he did not look personally offended by the existence of consequences. Proceed, Greg said. Not asked, said. The officiant swallowed and opened the leather book in his hands. His fingers shook over the page, but he found his voice. Before council, blood, family, and syndicate, Gregory Anderson claims Amelia Johns as wife under law, oath, and name. Tasha's voice came through my earpiece. If he says property, I'm throwing champagne. My mouth twitched. Greg heard it. Of course he did. His eyes cut to me, dark and sharp and still wild from violence. The officiant continued quickly because he seemed to value his teeth. As partner of his house, under his protection, under his loyalty, under his blood. Equal blood, Greg said. The room went still again. My throat tightened before I could stop it. The officiant nodded. Equal blood. Greg turned fully toward me. The ballroom disappeared around the edges. He was terrifying like this. Blood across his cuffs, tattoos visible at his throat. The head of the Anderson Syndicate, the monster men whispered about, standing in front of me as if the only judgment in the room that mattered lived behind my ribs. I have ruled by fear, he said, voice low enough to make everyone lean in. I have built this house with blood, debt, and consequence. I have killed for it. I will kill for it again. Very traditional. Very Greg. His hand closed around mine. But Amelia did not come to me through arrangement, debt, or council approval. She came through a wrong door and made it impossible to return to the life I had before her. His thumb brushed my knuckles. She is my wife, my family, my blood, my queen. Someone behind us inhaled too sharply. Greg did not look away from me. Any man who comes for her dies without negotiation. Any family that shelters her enemy becomes my enemy. Any council that mistakes her mercy for weakness will answer to both of us. Both of us. Not me, not him. Us. A ring appeared in his palm. Black gold, small diamonds, simple enough for my hand, and still somehow violent in its elegance. He slid it onto my finger, over the bandage from the blood oath. Do you accept? The officiant asked me. I looked at Greg, then at the council, then at Tasha, standing near the back now with champagne in one hand and a security tablet in the other because apparently trauma had become her internship program. Rosa stood beside her, crying into a napkin. Elena was upright and composed, but her eyes shone. Luca watched the doors. Marco watched everything else. My people. This impossible, blood-stained, rude-ass family. I accept Greg, I said. Not because I was trapped. Not because I was threatened. Not because he dragged me into this world and I forgot there were doors. Greg's jaw flexed. Good. Let him hear it too. I chose him, I continued. I chose this house. I chose the life with my eyes open, my mouth running, and a weapon under my dress. Tasha lifted her glass. accurate. A few nervous laughs broke through the ballroom. I took Greg's ring from the velvet tray. Heavy, dark, his. "I will not promise obedience," I said. The officiant looked like he briefly considered retirement. Greg's mouth curved, barely. "I promise loyalty," I said. "I promise truth. I promise to stand beside you when the room expects me behind you. I promise to fight for this family, not as decoration, and not as bait, but as Anderson." I slid the ring onto Greg's finger. His hand closed around mine so tightly it almost hurt. The officiant cleared his throat. "By authority of family, council, and blood oath, I name you Gregory and Amelia Anderson." The ballroom did not erupt. It shifted. Like every person inside understood something had just locked into place. Then Tasha clapped first, loud, aggressive, absolutely inappropriate. Rosa followed, sobbing harder. Luca grinned before remembering he was supposed to be terrifying. Marco looked away like that would hide his expression. Elena stepped closer and carefully adjusted the fall of my train. "Mrs. Anderson," she said. This time my heart did not stumble. It stood up. "Thank you, Elena." Greg kissed me in front of all of them. It was not polite. It was not gentle. It was a claim, a vow, and a warning pressed to my mouth while the council watched and learned. When he lifted his head, I tasted blood, and him. "Hello, wife," he murmured. "Hello, husband." I glanced at the chamber behind him. "You're cleaning that?" His eyes warmed like sin. I own people for that. Romantic. The rest of the night became something I had not expected. Alive. The Meridian emptied under Anderson control. Belandi left in cuffs. Marchesi, Varro, and De Luca were separated from their guards and taken to places no one asked about out loud. Santoro's remaining men either surrendered or discovered the unfortunate limits of loyalty after their bank accounts froze. By the time we reached the penthouse, the house had become a celebration with a security perimeter. Rosa had cooked enough food to feed every criminal on the eastern seaboard. Tasha drank champagne straight from a bottle and told Luca his dating profile was "giving emotionally unavailable hostage negotiator," but in a bad font. Luca looked wounded. Marco pretended not to laugh and failed. Elena floated through the room, correcting trays, closing doors, directing staff, and touching my train every time it dragged near something that might stain. "You can stop fixing me," I told her. "I am not fixing you," she said. "I am preserving evidence of excellent tailoring." Fair. Near midnight, Greg took my hand and led me away from the noise. The private elevator stood open. No guards in front of it, no armed man blocking the path, no code required. Just polished steel doors waiting. My chest went quiet. Greg stood beside me, his body close but not touching. "The doors are open." I looked at him. His face gave nothing away, but his eyes did. A man like Greg could stand in front of death without blinking, but this cost him. "If you want to leave," he said, "no one stops you. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever." The hallway blurred for half a breath. Not with fear, with the kind of freedom that hurt because I finally believed it was real. I thought about the first night. The wrong Rolls Royce, my bad date, my big mouth, his cold penthouse, the locked elevators, the danger, the blood, the way this house had gone from silent and sterile to loud and ridiculous, and mine. I stepped away from the elevator and back to him. "I'm not trapped anymore," I said. "No." His voice was rough. I touched his chest, feeling the hard beat beneath my palm. "I chose you." Greg's hand covered mine. "And I choose you back. Every time. Even when I'm difficult, especially then. Concerning, but flattering." He kissed me there, beside the open elevator, while the house laughed behind us. Later, after midnight, I stood barefoot in the kitchen wearing my wedding dress half unzipped, eating Rosa's food from a plate I had absolutely stolen from the counter. My lipstick was ruined. My curls were wild. My thighs ached in ways I had every intention of making worse. Greg leaned in the doorway, jacket gone, sleeves rolled, watching me like I was the only empire he cared about keeping. "You are getting sauce on Couture," he said. "I survived 2 wedding attacks, a bomb threat, council betrayal, and your emotional repression. The dress can survive pasta." He came toward me slowly. The room changed temperature. "Mrs. Anderson," he said. I pointed my fork at him. "Careful with that voice. I'm eating." He took the plate from my hand and set it aside. "Greg." His hand slid to my waist. "You chose the kitchen for our wedding night." The kitchen has snacks. The kitchen has memories. His mouth found my neck, and I forgot my next excellent argument. He turned me toward the island, gathered the red fabric in his hands, and kissed me until I was laughing and breathless and clinging to the marble. There was nothing gentle in the way he wanted me, but there was joy now. Possession without a cage. Dominance without chains. His hands were rough, his mouth filthy against my ear, and every time he called me his wife, heat curled low in my belly like a match catching. I gave as good as I got. Because I was his. Because he was mine. Because the clutches were not a prison anymore. They were hands I had chosen to hold. Afterward, I sat on the counter with my dress around my hips, Greg between my knees, his forehead pressed to mine, while the penthouse hummed around us. Warm, loud, alive. He looked at me, that dangerous mouth almost soft. "Do you regret climbing into the wrong Rolls-Royce?" I pretended to consider it. Then I smiled. Honestly, still better than my blind date.
I see your shadow in every place I go. Even silence keeps calling your name. People talk but they don't really know how loving you set my whole soul aflame. You walked in like you owned my breath, like my heart was already yours to take. Now I'm standing here fighting death, and every memory I can't escape. They say I should let you go, but how do I breathe alone? Stay, even if it breaks me, even if the world turns cold. Love me, even if it costs me every piece of my soul. I don't care what they say about you. I don't care what they think I should do. Loving you is my only truth, and I'll stay, even if it breaks me in two. Your voice still lingers in midnight air, like a prayer I can't unlearn.